And this is the reason why they're not doing anything that they're doing for conservation. They still support the removal of these animals from the wild. This is the same enclosure. You recognize it from the film? It's the same enclosure as the one that you saw the veterinarian who went to the dump and dug up the dead body. This is the same place. It's in Nicaragua, which is very close to Vladivostok. These are the belugas and orcas that are in the whale jail. That whale jail has been there for years. It's not new. The media sort of reported it as if it was new, but it's actually been there for years. What's different about what happened, this is just this winter, what happened with this last capture was unlike the 18 belugas that were caught for the Georgia Aquarium. I think Tyson mentioned this. There's over 100 belugas and orcas in this facility now. How did that happen? Well, they were aware that it was possible that the trade was going to end soon, that media had caught up with them, that public pressure had caught up with them, that maybe the trade was going to end soon, that either Russia or China or somebody was going to make it illegal to trade in these animals. And so they went out last year, 2018 in summer, and just caught as many as they could. They removed 90 belugas from a population that isn't that big, and they removed 11 orcas, all of them young animals. You saw it, stripped from their mothers, blah, blah, blah. Very horrible and traumatic. And they brought them to Nicaragua. I don't think they thought this through. Not only was it just too many animals for them to deal with appropriately, but when this got out, and drones are great things. Somebody put a drone up over this place and got all of this footage of 10 belugas in, I think it was actually 9 belugas in 10 enclosures, 90 animals. It shocked everybody, and the video footage went viral. And it really changed everything for this trade, for this situation in the Caucasus, for this situation in Russia. Putin got involved, and you saw how Putin liked to go out and put tags on belugas. He liked to be, Mr. Researcher and all this stuff. He got involved. And it wasn't Kim Basinger this time. It was Leonardo DiCaprio and people like that who tweeted about it. And he was apparently quite upset that it made Russia look bad. He's all for the trade, he's all for the money, but not embarrassing him and Russia in the doing of it. And so this situation, you see the ice, they actually were held there all winter long. Normally they would have been sold by the end of the summer. And they probably had buyers all throughout China and so on. But the trade was stopped. The export was not allowed. It went to court. Again, NGOs, nonprofit animal groups took them to court. And it has just recently been ruled that those captures were indeed illegal. So what to do with these now 97 whales? And, because 4 of them died over the winter. I mean, it's not pretty. This ice there, it's hard for them to survive that. They're not meant to live under ice. They live in the polar waters, but they don't stay where the ice forms in the winter. They move away from it. Well, they couldn't move away from it. They were literally breaking the ice up all winter long so they could breathe. It's very, very traumatic and a lot of noise. 4 of them died. So what is going to happen to those animals? Well, currently the Russian government is thinking about releasing them. And that, I think, is possible because they were all caught from the wild. They've only been held for a year, and we know exactly where they were taken from. The orcas were taken from an area called Shantar, and the belugas, as you saw, were taken from this area near Chocolate Island. And so they can be returned. Do we know exactly who their parents are, who their mothers are? No, but we're hoping they're still there. And even if they are gone, because they do kill some of these animals while they're doing the captures, as you saw, even if the mothers aren't alive still, if they are returned to their families, these are very, very bonded family animals, then if their aunt is alive or their sister is alive or somebody is still alive who would adopt them, then we believe that they could all be returned to these populations. The government is going back and forth. They're a bit afraid that if they do it, it's a disaster, then they'll still look bad, and so it'll be expensive. Who will pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going a bit back and forth, but at the moment, right now in June, they're currently still in favor of the release, and it has to happen soon. They were caught in July and August. They need to be released in July and August because that's when it's ideal for the boats to be out there and putting them over the side. Right? So we'll see. And again, I would actually recommend that you follow either my page or the Weibo account of the China Cetacean Alliance or the Hong Kong Dolphin Conservation Society, because we'll all be reporting on it if, in fact, they move forward with the release. This is the chapter I think that's going to be most important for you to read and most important for you to learn something from, and I think it's the strongest evidence we have. It's a comparison, chapter 4, of what it's like in captivity and what it's like in the wild for these animals. It's what I've spent most of my career examining, because I spent all my time, as you saw from the first 2 slides, with them out in the wild when I was in graduate school. That's where I know the orcas best. I spent hundreds of hours out there with these animals in the wild. And then I have spent the past 26 years spending way too much time looking at these animals in these sad little boxes. Well, okay, so what is this? This is a trap of a tagged male orca, all right, adult male. He's got a little suction cup tag on him that measures depth. And it's the kind of tag that you shoot on with a crossbow and it just goes onto their skin and it's a suction cup. And then eventually, after only a few hours, maybe 4 to 6 hours, something like that, it falls off. All right, so it's non-invasive. And it measures depth. So here he goes. It goes down to 160 meters. Right? Does something down there. He's not just laying down the bottom. He's doing something. He's probably chasing fish, socializing. And then he comes back up. Left to right is 5 minutes. That's one dive that he'll do during the day. He will do that 10 times during the day. All right? He will go deeper than that. Orcas have been measured down at 1,000 meters. We heard this in the film as well. All right? 900 to 1,000 meters. That's an extreme dive. I'm not saying they do that all the time, but this dive to 160 meters is absolutely normal. They'll do it a dozen times a day. Right? He'll spend most of his life between 50 and 100 meters. Right? They spend 80 to 90% of the time below the surface of the water. They're mammals who have to breathe air, and yet you're really only seeing about 10 to 20% of what they do when you see them at the surface. Most of their life takes place in this space, and down to here, and out to there. Okay, it's a huge amount of space that they have to exist in, that they need to exist in. See the blue box? The rectangular cube in the middle there? That's SeaWorld. And that's where, at SeaWorld, for example, 5 to 10 animals are going to live. Right? So this is one dive of an adult male, but if he was in captivity, he'd have to live his whole life in that box. We cannot provide for these animals in captivity. Their ecology is such that they cannot be provided for. This is just one point, one highlight from this chapter. Their food is wrong. Their social groups are wrong. The acoustic environment is wrong. Everything about captivity is wrong. These are intelligent social animals. Boxes are just boxes. It's like this box. There's no pictures on the walls. Would you want to live in this place the rest of your life? This room? There's no plants, there's no birds, there's no noise, there's no, like I said, there are not even any pictures on the wall. I mean, this is a boring space, right? I'm hoping this isn't boring, but this is a boring space. It's meant to be. You're supposed to be in a lecture. You're supposed to be learning something. Focus up here, folks. Don't be distracted while we're, yeah, the seats are comfortable, and that's about it. If you had to live here the rest of your life, you would slowly, at the very least, get very depressed. And you might even go mad. Right? And that is what is happening to these animals. They're intelligent, they're socially complex, they need stimulation, and they don't get what they need in captivity. That's what we take away from them, is this space. And I honestly believe that depression is the #1 problem they face. It is boring, which leads to depression, which leads to stress, which leads to shorter chapters about sort of the medical problems, the health problems that they face, the actual direct measurable health problems. And again, this is just one example. There are several examples offered in the book. So I'm just giving you one example. This is a dead killer whale found on a beach somewhere, stranded, and somebody took a picture of its teeth. Beautiful, big teeth, used for tearing apart their prey or killing their prey. This is what they look like in captivity. What happens in captivity? They grind their teeth down to the gum line to the point where they're actually opening up cavities. This is what boredom does to you. You actually harm yourself when you're so clinically, extraordinarily bored, like at risk of your life bored, that you'll start doing things that are harmful, self-harming, right? And they are chewing on the walls of their tank. They're chewing on the concrete of the walls of their tank. Interestingly enough, dolphins and whales who live in sea pens, they're dolphinariums, but they're pens, like the ones you saw in the movie, that are just holding pens, but there are dolphinariums that are larger than that are permanent, that are meant for the animals, like swimming programs, for example. If you want to swim with dolphins, you might go to the Caribbean and find them in a sea pen. Those dolphins don't have this problem, because they don't have something so abrasive as concrete to chew. It's not because they're not as bored, it's that they don't have the same kinds of surfaces, and so they don't actually develop the same kinds of problems. These guys are chewing on the walls of the tank. They also break their teeth from biting at the metal gates that separate their enclosures. So this tooth is actually broken. It's not ground down. He snapped it off. It's just, listen to that. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? It must be really painful when they break their teeth, and it is. So how many of you have been told by your dentist, bad teeth, bad health? If you have bad dental health, you are going to have bad physical health. It might even kill you eventually. Certainly it's bad for cats and dogs. It's bad for all mammals that have bad dentition. These are actually cavities that can become pathways for bacteria, for pathogens to make the animal sick. They can't fill them the way you get your cavities filled, because they live in the water. The amalgam that you normally would fill a cavity with is just going to wash right out as soon as you put it in. So they just have to clean them constantly. The trainers have to clean out these holes, these cavities, day in and day out, several times a day. And it isn't sufficient. It isn't sufficient. It actually leads, I believe, and again, this is something we really want to study, but we need access to the medical records, and we don't have that access. We believe it leads to the illnesses, the infections that shorten their lives. Right? Look at any cetacean in captivity, dolphin, a beluga whale, and you'll notice a lot of them have bad teeth. It's not just an orca problem, but orcas, probably because they're the biggest, most intelligent, most stressed species that's held, they're the champions of bad teeth. The industry will tell you it's normal for them to look like this. This is what they're supposed to look like. That's just a lie. I mean, that's not even spin. That's just a flat-out lie. Right? So what you end up with is about 70% of the orcas in captivity have moderately damaged teeth, and a quarter of the orcas in captivity have severely damaged teeth. This is silicone, by the way. You don't need teeth to kill something, by the way. Obviously, you killed this trainer, and that's what his teeth are. So basically, 94% of the whales, the orcas in captivity, 94% have bad teeth. Every orca had at least one bad tooth. Right? There was no orca that escaped this point. But some seem to have either less neuroses or not these neuroses, and 70% only have moderate damage, but 24% have severe. Chapter 6 through 8 are about behavior, stress, and intelligence. This is a book about all marine mammals in captivity, but we do stress the cetacean issue because those species are the most hard-hit. Killer whale enrichments. What does that look like to you? Looks like a pile of junk to me. And it is. It's just literally a pile of junk. Plastic, canvas, junk. That's the best we can do for them. This is SeaWorld. State of the art. These are their toys, their enrichments. Inanimate floating junk. These are smart animals, socially complex. They treat inanimate floating junk just like you imagine they do. They might be interested for about 5 minutes, and then it just gets boring, and they stop playing with this stuff. What we saw at Shanghai was the four, and there's a photo of them later, the four orcas that are at the Haicheng Ocean Park and are newly on display since November. We saw one of the females playing with something like this. It was a float, a plastic or rubber float that had a line, a rope attached to it. And they were meant to grab the rope and pull the buoy around, this float around. And some of them were doing that. A couple of them were doing that. But this female was taking the line, the rope, and she was sucking it down her throat like you would a noodle. We saw it disappear down her throat. And then she sort of spit it out again, and she vomited all the food in her stomach. She did that at least 4 times. Twice she vomited a lot of food, and twice she just vomited a little bit of liquid. But she was self-inducing vomiting, like you sticking your finger down your throat. Right? And the only thing I can think of is either she was so bored that, again, self-harming, just like the teeth, right? She was doing it to do something, but it was self-harming. She wasn't keeping her food down, and that's not good. Or she was sick, and it was making her feel better to, evacuate her stomach. Like you feel when you're hungover, and you feel a little better after you throw up. But whatever it was, I'll tell you this much: it was not normal. So these animals have been in captivity for a while. They've been on display since November, and this female was doing something that was very much not normal. I don't know what it means in the long term, and we are going to try to keep an eye on these 4 whales and see what happens to them. But I'm a little worried about her because if it is because she's sick, that's pretty serious.